Sometimes it's okay to put down a hard book and read an easy book. Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and over the recent weeks I have released 2 videos, 5 hard books that I have read, and 5 of the hardest books that I want to read. And those videos were about reading difficult and hard books. But it got me to thinking, because the definition of a hard book isn't fixed. It's different for each reader. But why should you always read hard books? Isn't it to your advantage to sometimes read an easy book? A book that's just fun to read, that may not have a whole lot of depth to it, or maybe it's an easy book that has a little bit of depth to it and is still meaningful anyway. So this is a counter video to my hard books video. This is a video where I will talk about 5 of the easy books that I have read. Now, my definition of easy may not be your definition of easy. So just leave that to your mind when you're thinking about what I consider easy. The books that I have picked really aren't super trashy, easy type of books. They are books that are easier to read than Being in Time, but they still have some depth to them. I had originally intended this video to only include 5 easy books. I'd made my selection, I had made my thumbnail, I had made my notes. I was getting ready to make this video. And then someone in the comments section of one of my hard books videos mentioned Anthony Trollope as an intimidating author, staring back at the shelf, looking hard. But I don't think Anthony Trollope is all that hard. So I'm going to include a 6th honorable mention to this video, and that will be The Warden by Anthony Trollope, originally published in 1855. A lot of people think Victorian novels are difficult because they are old. They are not. Anthony Trollope is a delight to read. He is very easy. The stories are charming, even though they include some tragic circumstances. But The Warden is about The Warden is the first in his Barchester Towers series, and it features the cathedral town of Barchester and many of its clerical inhabitants. The story centers on Mr. Harding, who has been granted a comfortable wardenship of a charity hospital. But he soon learns that he may not be fully entitled to this wardenship, this easy money, and that he should be giving it to someone else. And that sets up the story. As I said, it is delightful and tragic at the same time. Anthony Trollope is just an easy read, despite being a Victorian novel. You really should check out Anthony Trollope. A few booktubers over the past few years have mentioned they made it to their 60s without reading Anthony Trollope. I read the Anthony Trollope books in my late 50s, and I'm very glad I did. I have not read all of the Barchester Chronicles books, but I should get around to them someday. They're great. I will be presenting my 5 easy books in publication order. King Rat by James Clavell, 1962. Set in a Japanese prisoner of war camp in Singapore during World War II, the novel follows a group of Allied prisoners struggling to survive brutal conditions, starvation, disease, and consistent uncertainty. At the center is the King, an American corporal who thrives on the camp's black market. Unlike others, he isn't bound by traditional military codes or class loyalties. He trades, schemes, and manipulates his way into a position of relative power, able to secure food, medicine, and comforts others can't. The story largely centers or tracks around Peter Marlowe, a British officer who becomes fascinated and conflicted by the King. Marlowe represents traditional British values and honor and hierarchy, while the King represents pure pragmatism, survival at any cost. Now, this is a fascinating story. It's sort of not really an adventure story the way Shogun is an adventure story. This is more of a psychological story of what you do as a prisoner of war, trying to survive. I first read this in high school. I took a class on World War II history, and this was assigned as one of our required readings. What a fantastic novel. It is literature, sort of, but it's also a popular novel, and anyone can read this with fascination and ease. It's not difficult. Like I said, it's not difficult, like the way Being in Time is going to be difficult. This is a delightful, easy novel to read, and you should really like it. It is my favorite of James Clavell's novels. I like it better than Shogun. Shogun usually wins over King Rat, but I prefer King Rat. Read this book. It's great. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold by Jean Le Carre, originally published in 1963. This might be the best espionage novel ever written. It is the third in the George Smiley series. You do not have to read the first two George Smiley books to like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. In fact, it may be better to start with this book. The first two books in the Smiley series are really murder mysteries and not espionage books. But this is a bleak, strapped-down espionage novel set at the height of the Cold War. The story follows Alex Lemus, a tired and disillusioned British intelligence agent working in Berlin. After one of his networks is destroyed by East German intelligence, Lemus is pulled back to London and offered one last mission: to come in from the cold by staging a fake defection to East Germany. His job is to feed false information that will discredit a powerful East German spy master. And I have mentioned in another video that this is one of my favorite novels. It is incredibly intelligent, incredibly gripping. Some people may say it's a little more difficult than an easy novel, but you can read this novel fast. It is clear, and the end is so brutal. Now, I tend to like brutal endings to my books. That's a little bit of a spoiler, but not much. I think a lot of people would enjoy The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. Hard Rain Falling by Don Carpenter, originally published in 1966. This is a gritty, compassionate, and unsentimental portrait of life on the margins of American society. It follows Jack Levitt, an orphan drifter from Portland, Oregon, whose intelligence and toughness can't save him from the spiral of crime, incarceration, and alienation. Jack's story begins in pool halls and cheap hotels, where he survives by hustling and fighting. He eventually ends up in reform school and later prison, where he meets Billy Lansing, a black pool hustler and former basketball star. The two men form a deep, ambiguous bond, part friendship, part love, that becomes the emotional core of the novel. After prison, Jack struggles to live a straight life. He drifts through jobs and relationships and a brief marriage, haunted by the futility of trying to belong to a world that has no place for him. This is a deep psychological noir novel. It is written in clear prose. The character of Jack is a little ambiguous. He's a little off-putting. He's not necessarily a likable character, but this novel has a deep and profound psychology of a mind that grew up with crime and tried to outlive that criminal mind and criminal life. This is an utterly fascinating book. It is an easy read, but it has a lot of emotional and psychological and philosophical depth to it. Nada by Jean-Patrick Manchette, originally published in French in 1972. Jean-Patrick Manchette was one of the leading and defining figures of modern French crime fiction. Nada is a novel that follows a small, disorganized group of far-left militants in Paris, calling themselves Nada. In Spanish, that means nothing. They are not disciplined revolutionaries so much as angry, drifting intellectuals and misfits. They decide to carry out a kidnapping of the U.S. ambassador to France. The plan is meant as a political act, but it already is shaky from the start. The group lacks cohesion, professionalism, and a clear, long-running term of thinking. Right away, Manchette undercuts any romantic notion of revolution. These are not great people. They are not heroes. They are thugs. They have ideals which Manchette is sympathetic with, and I am sympathetic too, but they do it all wrong because they're criminals. And this is just an exciting story of noir, of crime, of politics gone way wrong. Highly entertaining. I can highly recommend it. 52 Pickup by Elmore Leonard, originally published in 1974. Elmore Leonard was one of the greatest crime novelists this country has ever produced. Middle-aged businessman Harry Mitchell is living a comfortable suburban life outside of Detroit until it starts to unravel. He's having an affair, and 3 low-level criminals catch wind of it. Instead of going to the police, they begin blackmailing him for $100,000, threatening to expose the affair to his wife and ruin his life. What makes this a Leonard novel is that Harry doesn't panic. He adapts. Rather than just paying up, he decides to outmaneuver the blackmailers. As he gets pulled deeper into their world, the situation escalates from a simple extortion scheme into violence, betrayal, and the shifting power dynamics among the criminals themselves. And what builds the tension in this book is the dialogue. You can really get into these characters. You can hear their voices in your head, trying to get out of this horrible situation. I first read this book sometime in the 80s, and then I wanted to get more into Elmore Leonard again, so I picked up the Library of America editions, and what a great value. Elmore Leonard, as I said, is one of America's greatest crime novelists, and everyone should read an Elmore Leonard book. I picked 52 Pickup, not only because it was the first Elmore Leonard book that I read, but as the first novel in the series from the Library of America. Definitely pick up Elmore Leonard. You will not be disappointed. Okay, those are my 5 easy pieces for book lovers. There is no science fiction in this list because I want to do a separate video just on 5 easy science fiction novels that I think are great. That will have to be for later. Thank you for watching and keep on reading.